back, ladies and gentlemen, to the eSports Report. Benson joined by Puckett as we go on our road to finals. Of course, MLG Finals, the 100th MLG event. So excited. You've been a part of a lot of those events now. How many has it been?
Dude, I've probably done 115, but only 99 of them were considered pro circuit events. So the big 100 coming up.
I'm excited, of course. In this episode, we're dissecting Epsilon North America. And this is a look at the new squad as of announced a couple of days ago. Of course, Remy, Nagafen, Parasite, and Aqua, 3/4 of the old Team Revenge lineup that placed second at the Call of Duty World Championship. A lot of questions now, really. Was that last performance of Season 3 a fluke, or can they do it again? Well, let's kind of break down each player, Chris. We'll start with Remy. We can compare his stats from COD Champs and Season 3. Of course, COD Champs on the left-hand side, Season 3, the MLG Pro League on the right-hand side. We said he kind of improved a little bit. Numbers don't lie, Chris.
Yeah, his overall KD went up slightly, but you'll see the uplinks went down. I think you saw a whole lot of teamwork coming in Season 3 from Epsilon. Not a whole lot of high-scoring uplink games, but definitely still playing his role. That aggressive sub, get into the hard point first, make it easier for the player behind him to get the two-piece, and then I think, you know, his aggressive SMG has been one of the most consistent things in their S&D game as well. Yes. Likes to bait himself out quite a bit for his teammates.
He's very unselfish. He doesn't mind sacrificing himself if it's going to benefit the team in the long run, and that's something which, you know, only a couple of players, I feel, in the pro circuit really possess. It's just such a valuable trait, it really is. Then we move on to Nagafen. Now, Nagafen is an interesting one. At COD Champs, he had a 1.05, but a lot of people kind of think how well he played at Season 3, you would have thought he would have had a higher overall KD here. It's a 0.92, but the Slayer rating pretty much stayed the same.
Right.
Hardpoint KD didn't really fluctuate, but again, uplinks per game went down, which is really interesting to me.
And also, I think you have to look at the level of competition that they played. You look back to Champs, a slightly easier road than I think they had at Season 3, could be argued. And I think you'll see those numbers kind of reflected all across the board here. From Nagafen, though, let's take it to Aqua. Now, Aqua, of course, wasn't playing with Epsilon. He was back on Envy for this tournament. His overall KD drops from a 1.15 to a 1.05, but he does improve by about 2 kills per game in the Slayers. His hard point still positive, and you see he was more involved with Envy on the uplink side than he was back on TR.
It's kind of ironic, right? The one guy back in the TR days who didn't really do as much of the objective work in uplink was doing more work as opposed to the players which we consider to be so objective heavy, kind of laid off the gas a little bit when it came to their uplink work. But now those core three are back together, I think you're really going to see those uplinks per game go up, 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 and up. And you're going to see, you know, Aqua Slayer rating, that's also going to increase, something which I'm super excited about. Then we can kind of take a look at Parasite at Season 3 versus Vicento at Champs. And this is one of the really big stories is, you know, between these two players, can Parasite really fill Vicento's shoes? Overall KD-wise, a 1.05 for Vicento and a 1.01 for Parasite. Now, a little bit of a kind of disclaimer, they were playing little different roles, but still, you know, these are some of the numbers which you can kind of look at and really give a good comparison.
Yeah, this is your vocal leader, the guy who is going to slay the way with the AR, and you see what Parasite brings, almost 31.5 kills per game of respawn. His hard point, he's always going to go positive, and you look at his uplinks, he's still just as involved.
Yep.
Vicento, if you remember, got a lot of passes back when he was on TR. Parasite, you saw a lot of kind of individual plays coming in from him back at the Season 3 final.
Now, this is a look going all the way to the loser bracket final, Parasite versus Vicento at COD Champs. So the two teams obviously, of course, met up, and you can kind of see just a little bit of how both those two players were playing against each other. I mean, game one was that Biolab hardpoint. Parasite goes 28 and 24, 6 caps. Vicento 26 and 30, just with 1 cap. Then as you move over towards the solo search and destroy, Parasite goes 6 and 9 with a plant. Vicento 5 and 9, 0 plants. Game 3, a Detroit uplink. Parasite goes 25 and 23, Vicento 21 and 31. And then at game 4, a retreat CTF. Parasite 12 and 17, Vicento 20 and 18. So when it came to it, they were both pretty close, I think it's fair to say. There is a little bit of fluctuation where it looks as if it favors Parasite, gonna be honest. But I think they're both equally matched, I really do. I think when it comes down to it, you compare the two, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, Chris. It's going to be about the hype, and it's going to be about the leadership. Vicento did that flawlessly. A lot of pressure on Parasite's shoulders to continue to do that.
Right, and Parasite's a guy who can also get down in the dumps and to a point where it's almost unrecoverable. He's got to stay positive all weekend at Worlds. He can't ever get down. He can't blame his teammates. He's got to pick them up when they fall quiet. I think he's got bigger shoes than he thinks he does coming in to fill in, but he's already taken to Twitter saying, I got 3/4 of TR's lineup. Now we'll see if I can fill in my buddy Vicento's shoes.
Yeah, he did it in a very mature way. I think a lot of people kind of look at Parasite sometimes to come out and be a little bit more, I don't want to say egotistical, but he's very much more outspoken, if you will. It's like, yeah, don't worry, guys, got 3/4. I'm easily going to fill. Like, use that kind of wording where it's like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal. He was actually very respectful. He understood exactly what TR did at Champs and how amazing they played. And he was like, I recognize I'm trying to fill Vicento's shoes. And the role that he played on that squad at Champs was just so valuable for the team. And kind of when you see him look like that, you're like, okay, maybe Epsilon can cause some damage when it comes to Worlds, because still they have that storyline when you look at all those players on that team that they didn't really do much at the start of the game, then started getting some online performances, play really well at North American Regionals, then get a phenomenal finish at COD Champs. After that, as we kind of recap, they break up, they all go their different ways, and nothing really happens for many of them. Then Epsilon, another great finish. Can they do that again? That is the question on everyone's minds, Chris.
I see this squad as bottom of tier 1. They're still behind Optic Gaming. They're still behind FaZe.
Okay.
Are they stronger than the new Elevate? I think that's a possibility. Are they stronger than the new Denial Without Replays with Classic filling it? I don't know who's running the objective on that squad. I think that could be a situation. You have a very objective-minded roster right now who excels at the DLC maps. They looked excellent on Skyrise, and their snipers were on point.
Nagafen wasn't missing.
I think Epsilon could go very deep, but I'm also very concerned that they crash and burn and don't have what it takes to mount a long losers bracket road. Because if you look at the success that TR and Epsilon has had, it's always in the winners bracket, not the losers bracket. They crash out pretty quickly.
That's a good point. Admittedly, you look at Season 3, that winners bracket was stacked, as we kind of touched on, but still, I feel like that's when they have had the most successes, when they go through that winners bracket and they kind of minimize the amount of games they actually need to play. But really, the question that I want to ask you is, in your mind at least, what does this Epsilon squad need to do to win? Because we've seen them beat Denial. We've seen them beat Elevate, FaZe. They basically threw the game against Optic Gaming, let's be honest. They should have won that series. But what do they need to do to win again, in your mind, with this new squad?
That's my biggest fear. Is you look at what they did against Optic Gaming, going up big and then burning out, just letting Optic win all the final games in that series.
Painful to watch.
They've got to keep the intensity from start to finish. They got to be rested. They got to be communicating properly. And I don't know who is going to be that vocal leader outside of Parasite. I look at that lineup and I see how quiet Remy and Nagafen normally are, unless they're having an insane game. You look at Aqua, same thing can be said there. I felt like Royalty was the second most pumped up guy, if not the most pumped up guy on the squad, back at regionals, or Season 3 finals, rather. So I got to see the squad with more energy, communicating more. Without that, I think they don't go as far as they hope to.
And that's where that big thing, again, you look at Vicento when he was on TR, he had that leadership, he had that hype. After every single round of Search and Destroy, standing up, you can see so many B-roll clips of COD Champs of Vicento just like screaming. You kind of saw that with Royalty at Season 3 finals. Whenever he was clutching up, he was getting up, and his teammates were like looking at him like, how did you just do that, you crazy man? We don't understand it. He's just like high-fiving, fist-bumping, everything. You take both of those components away, and it's like, okay, now you really may have a little bit of an issue. If Parasite can't really take that role on, which I think he really needs to, and I kind of think back, have you really ever seen him do that role? You've seen him get excited, obviously. You've seen him get pumped up. But I feel like he's never really been the one to just really get it going. Like, you even go back to the Impact days. You kind of had Miracles and Killa.
Was the guy to feed off of,
Like, he was the guy who was just, like, standing up in the booth, like, standing on his chair, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And you're sat there going, okay, I like this guy. He's getting himself pumped up. Parasite just kind of fed upon that and got himself hyped up when he made the play. Now he has to get himself hyped up when everyone makes the play. And, we're not just talking about screaming when someone gets a kill. We're talking about just keeping the positive vibes in the booth, which are going to be so, so important come Worlds.
You listen to the comms throughout Season 3 finals from this Epsilon lineup. It was pretty rare, but when you did listen in, it was good chatter. So I think they definitely have their call-outs on point. There's no panic in their communication. There is that little level of intensity when they're behind and they feel like they need to get back into it. So it's not something that they can't overcome. I definitely think this team can achieve what they're going for. I look at the squads that are going to cause them problems, though, and the first two, Optic Gaming and FaZe. When you look at this squad side by side with FaZe, Can you tell me that Epsilon has a stronger lineup?
I mean, I don't want to say yes, but then you look at the past event and they just beat them, and then of course Optic Gaming as well. Can I say they have a stronger lineup than Optic Gaming? No, I'd be crazy to. You look at the individual talent there, and like, let's be realistic. This is a team that's been in the grand final of every single event this year except for COD Champs. Like that would be an absurd statement to make. But at the same time, we watch Epsilon throw away a series in a winners bracket final against them. They had the series won. They just couldn't close it out, which was just, you know, kind of heartbreaking.
It was search and destroy. Search and destroy for me is going to be the difference maker against both of these squads. I think you give them an opportunity in all uplinks. That's a 50-50 coin toss.
You think so?
And I look at Hardpoint, and you'd be surprised by how many issues Epsilon caused in Hardpoint. So I don't think you can count them out. But looking at Optic Gaming and FaZe, I'm going to say 65% of the time I favor them to win the Hardpoint. So it comes down to those searches, and it's going to come down to the ball game. You got to control the uplink and really take advantage of the good side against Optic Gaming.
I think that's where it gets exciting again, though, because you have that 3/4 of TR, the team which was just so dominant at uplink. Now with 75% of that squad, are we going to see those flashy plays? Are we going to see simple stuff which we really haven't seen too much? Like when I say I'm playing against you, for example, and I have the lead, and there's 2 minutes left. If I have possession of the drone, guess what? You're not going to score. We've seen Optic Nation kind of dabble with it a little bit dangerously throughout Season 3 of the Pro League, but TR was one of the first teams to really recognize that, start throwing the ball to the back of base. FaZe did it at Season 3 finals as well. I feel like that's such a basic strategy, but we didn't really see teams do it. TR was the first one to look at uplink and think, okay, how can we view this differently as opposed to I pick up ball, I run at portal, I try and score? Can they revitalize that? If they can, I look at when they play FaZe and Optic Gaming, I think they'll cruise through an uplink. I don't think they'll have any issues in an uplink game at all. Search and destroy, though, that's when it kind of gets a little interesting. They need their sniping to be on point, dependent on the maps, but Nagafen proved that he can snipe with the best. He was hitting some absurd shot. That Skyrise, like, I don't know how he was hitting some
pretty incredible shots, I think, could be, it's fair to say, for all of these players. Nagafen definitely going to be the X factor coming in to the tournament for me. I think you look at Parasite, arguably the most important role. He's got to win those battle fights against Formal. He's got to win those battle fights against Clayster. But you need Nagafen to be playing the level he was at Season 3.
Very true.
Also, remember how clutch Epsilon was. They were so clutch in the final 2 minutes of every single game. I'd love to see some stats and some graphs and just look at how they perform in the 2-minute drill. Because this is a squad, didn't matter how far down they were able to bring it back. And to the last 30 seconds, you never knew who was going to win that game.
Right, and that's just that composure that they had. It was, all right, we can be down 30 points, just don't panic. Just focus on the game, focus on the final couple of hard points, maybe even the final hill. Just make sure that we're set up properly, we break the hill properly, and we stay composed. Like, for example, a Biolab hard point. You get to that final hill, sometimes teams just panic. They start flooding in from all different angles, they don't have a team set up, they don't take a couple of seconds to compose themselves, and that's when games can spiral away from you. Epsilon, they don't do that. They're more than happy to just take 5 seconds, give you a 5-point lead. No big deal. We'll go for one team push, break the hill, and we'll win the game. And that's something which is just so impressive to be able to sit back and watch a team just completely relax, not fault under pressure. And again, having 75% of TR back again is going to be huge. Parasite, a player who, has his ups and downs. Let's be honest, he does. But he's always a very, very composed player. Very, very experienced. He's a world champion. He knows what it's like in those clutch situations. And, you add that to the leadership mentality, and maybe this Epsilon squad can cause some upsets at World.
So, Optic and FaZe aside.
Yep.
What does Epsilon need to do to defeat the next chunk? Your 3 seed to your 6 seed, your elevates, your denials.
At that point, it's just making sure you're winning what you're supposed to win. I don't look at Hardpoint as being a game type that I expect Epsilon to win, but if they do, it makes the series very, very easy for them. It's just hold true in your uplinks and win your search and destroys. And if you do steal a Hardpoint, great. You just made your life so much easier. I think when you go up against, the new Denial squad, the new Elevate squad, I don't think they're going to have as much natural chemistry. I mean, maybe you could argue a little bit Denial, but I think the chemistry that they're going to have is so far and above like any of these newer teams. Yes, not Optic and FaZe, of course. They didn't make any team changes. They still have this chemistry for a very long time. But they're already ahead of the teams which have already made changes because they basically said, oh, here was a success that we had. Let me bring the success back and see if we can repeat that success. Now, sometimes in history, it doesn't work. You've seen teams go back to what used to work and it no longer works because the game is being played differently. Definitely the case. You look at how Advanced Warfare is being played now, very different to how it was being played at COD Champs. But still, that natural chemistry, I think, you'll see the Epsilon boys kind of sit in the booth when they get to Worlds, and there'll just be some smiles on their faces. They'll look, left and right, and they'll be like, yeah, this was a squad that we had so much success with. Now we have Parasite as well. He's, at least equal to Vicento. I can't think you can say he's worse than Vicento by any means. So they're going to be feeling just so good when it comes to Worlds.
Practice Parliament uplink 1,000 times.
Yes. What he said.
My only thing to work on, the thing to improve on, that's my biggest fear for you, is you go into a map that requires 4 battles. Can you slay consistently to win that uplink game mode? Because there's not too many uplink maps. It's going to be a big one, and you're going to see it in some crucial moments in New Orleans.
But then that's when I think of this squad, and I think, yeah, I think they know. I think they sit there at home and they go, all right, let's go over some strats. And they look at Palmer and they go, we're not going to be able to out-battle Clay, Formal, even Octane on this map. We're just going to have to think of a different way of trying to beat the team. How do we do it? Do we maybe, for some crazy reason, decide to wrap the drone the opposite side of the map and find a throw spot which no one has ever seen before, and they can get easy 1-point plays? Maybe. If there's one squad that's going to do it, it's going to be this Epsilon North American team, and that is what is so exciting about the team.
All right. Well, I think that's all I got on Epsilon. Ben, while I have you on the show, going to be that guy.
Oh, God, here we go.
How far do they go in New Orleans, knowing that you haven't seen your bracket and you haven't seen the groups?
Okay.
Give me your raw prediction.
Top 5.
Top 5.
I think it's fair to say that they should easily achieve top 5. Bracket and pool play, not knowing how that's going to end up. Wouldn't be surprised if they found themselves maybe in a winner's bracket final, maybe a loser's bracket final. I could see one of those scenarios. My big fear, though, is kind of, as you pointed out earlier on, if they do go down into the loser's bracket early, how are they going to mentally cope with that? Something which they haven't really had success with when it's happened.
Yeah.
They need to stay in that winner's bracket final four, or that winner's bracket, for as long as they possibly can. That's the key to success for them.
Top 3 or bust for me. Either get into those final matches, or you're bombing out 7th, 8th, or below. We'll see how far they can go. $250,000 on the line. You know they'll be grinding every moment until the tournament begins. You can catch it all live right here on MLG.TV, October 16th through the 18th. And of course, this is just the first episode in our 4-part series.
It is.
You can catch the road to the finals, 5 p.m. this Wednesday, Ben. What's the story on Wednesday?
An unexpected contender.
It's going to be a great show. Make sure you tune in. We'll see you tomorrow for Rocket League, as well as your COD updates starting at 5 p.m. Eastern right here on MLG.TV.